Chapter 5 of Tractate Beitzah further expands on the laws of holidays. The first Mishnah says you can lower produce through a skylight on a holiday, but not on Shabbos. You can cover produce or pitchers of wine or oil with cloths to protect against dripping rainwater. You can put a vessel under leaking water in a house on Shabbos. The Gemara debates the exact definition and usage of certain words in the Mishnah in regards to what means to lower. There's discussion as to how much produce can be lowered through such a skylight based off a different case from Tractate Shabbos, perhaps 4 or 5 boxes. There's also a question if you can transfer just through the skylight but not also across roofs, and if that similarly applies to Shabbos, as by Shabbos people would possibly be more stringent as the laws are stricter, or perhaps less so, as there's no concern of losing produce. There's also a question if you can lower the produce using windows or with ladders. It also goes through circumstance of being allowed to cover certain things, which is discussed along with the usability of beehives and honeycomb. Related points are discussed further. New Mishnah. Anything that you're obligated not to do on Shabbos, even if it's a mitzvah, you're also obligated to not do on a holiday. Rabbinically, you cannot climb a tree, ride an animal, swim in water, clap your hands, slap your thighs, or dance. You cannot do certain non-mandatory mitzvahs, no adjudication court, no betrothing or doing chalitza or yibum, parts of the love-right marriage. Full mitzvahs that are prohibited on these days are consecrating things, making assessment vows, making something cherem, set aside for temple use, or separating teruma or tithes. These both apply to Shabbos and the holidays. In fact, the only real difference between the laws of holidays and Shabbos is in regards to laws of food preparation. The Gemara explains, climbing a tree is not allowed out of concern that you'll tear something off, which is an issue of reaping. Riding an animal is not allowed out of concern that you'll leave your techum boundary, or possibly because you'll cut a branch off a tree to use as a whip. No swimming, as you might construct a swimmer's tube by weaving reeds, which is not allowed. The issues with clapping and dancing and whatnot is that it could result in you repairing a musical instrument. The mitzvahs listed, which were non-mandatory, are because he betrothed a second wife, and it's a younger brother doing yibum in those cases. And the concern by all of those is that you'll wind up writing. The full mitzvahs that were disallowed was because they are similar to commerce. No separating tithes for Kohanim applies to separating the tithes to give them on that day. This doesn't apply if the produce became tevel, unconsecrated, on that day, and the remaining points are for the qualified. New Mishnah. In regards to the laws of the techum boundary, which are spoken about more by Tractate Eruv, people and objects have a techum, a 2,000 cubit limit that you cannot walk outside of on Shabbos and holidays. If you have 2 cities' techum, and their techums overlap, people and items can go into the overlap, but somebody from the first city cannot take things from the second city from the overlap into his city's techum. Livestock and utensils have their techum boundary go according to their owner. If you entrust your animal to somebody else, its techum goes according to theirs. If many people own a utensil, its techum is limited to an area common to all of them. If you borrow a utensil, if it was before the holiday, its techum is the same as yours. If you borrowed it on the holiday, it goes according to the lender. If you borrow cooking things like water and salt, it goes only between your overlap techum. Some exempt water from this. The Gemara disputes who exactly we hold like by this. It also discusses a garment being shared by 2 people to be used on different times of the holiday. It can only be within their shared techum area. If there is no overlap between their techums with the garment right in the middle, it can't be moved at all. Some people say if 2 people bought and divided wine and meat before the holiday, the wine can be brought to their respective techums, but the animal can only be within their shared techum. Others even allow the animal to go through, depending on what your logic is. It's debated in regards to the principle of berera, meaning retroactive clarification, and how it applies here. It's discussed further. Some say that we hold like the opinion that those laws don't apply to biblical laws, but they do by rabbinic laws, like the Eruv techumen. Some say that the ox of a fattener goes according to the individual who purchased it, while the ox of a shepherd goes according to the residents of the city. The remaining points are further discussed. We said that the techum by water and salt is limited. We try to offer an answer that the water and salt don't become nullified. It's that their ownership was established before the holiday, but that's rejected. Some say the issue is that they might come to make a partnership, so this is a preventative measure. Others say that these are added for taste, so they don't become nullified into the mixture. Others say it's not nullified because it becomes permitted. We said water is an exception, and others add specific types of salt. The water is only considered nullified and no longer discernible by thick food, where it's been absorbed. New Mishnah. A burning coal has a techum, like its owner, but a flame can be transported anywhere, as it's a non-tangible object. If a coal is consecrated property, it's possible to misuse it for private purposes, called me'ilah. This is not possible by a flame. The same applies on Shabbos. You can't carry a burning coal to a public domain on Shabbos, but you're exempt if you carry a flame, again, as it's non-tangible. The Gemara lists some other distinctions between the two. There's no decree against using the flame from an idol, because obviously no one's going near that one anyways. There are further discussed. The way you would carry a flame between domains is by holding it right by the edge between domains and waving it so it passes over. New Mishnah. Water drawn from a water hole has a techum, like the person who drew it. Water from a water hole that belongs to a city has a techum like the city. Water from water holes from those traveling from Babylonia to Israel on the holiday festivals have a techum like those who drew the water. The Gemara clarifies that our Mishnah refers to collected water. There's disagreement if you draw water from one of the wells on the way from Babylonia to Israel and give it to your friend. Some say it retains your techum, others say it switches to your friends, based on if you hold that those water holes are ownerless or owned by every Jewish person. This is debated. New Mishnah. If your produce is in another town and the people of that town establishes an Eruv Techumen, a process which extends your Eruv, again, please see Tractate Eruvin for more details, they cannot use that to bring you your produce. But if you made the Eruv, the produce is going like its owner, so you can go get it. If you invited guests from that town, they can't bring your produce with them, unless you had transferred some of its ownership to them before the holiday. The Gemara debates, if you deposit your produce by somebody, as to if its techum is by the depositor or the depositee, which has basis by the laws of liability to be discussed in a later tractate of Bava Kama. Some say that these discussions are not correlated. The topic is debated, along with some related incidents about hanging meat and whose techum it accords by. New Mishnah. You cannot draw water or slaughter range animals on a holiday. They are considered to be muktzah, but you may do this with domesticated animals. Domesticated animals are those that pass the night in the town. Range animals are those that pass the night in the pasture. The Gemara discusses watering your animals and then slaughtering your animals, just to inform you to water your animals before slaughter, so that way they're easier to skin after. Some have a different definition for range or domestic animals, saying it depends on where and when they pasture. One Rebbe says that range animals are those that graze in pastures and don't return to settlements in the summer or winter, and he would not hold a strict broad application of the laws of muktzah, unlike the other opinion, who says they disagree by animals which graze by Passover time and return by the first rains. Rebbe says that those are domesticated, while the other opinion says that those are range animals. And that's the end of chapter 5 and the entire tractate Beitzah.